Okay, so we are down to the last part of my lecture in the midterm, no? Which is the sixth part. And again, the last part. And let's continue with the minerals. Okay, so first, calcium. So remember that calcium is needed, no, in blood coagulation. And this is exactly where calcium plays their role. So in the conversion of prothrombin to thrombin, remember kinahanglan po si vitamin K. Calcium is also needed as a cofactor here. Okay, so it helps in the conversion of prothrombin to thrombin, and if deficient ka sa calcium, then pwede sad maapektuhan ang integrity sa blood coagulation at this point. So that's why calcium is very important in blood coagulation. What about in nerve transmission or nerve impulse transmission? So, maupod ni atong makit-an permi sa mga function sa minerals, no? So, I will show you, no, sa ilang exact nga role. So, this is with the involvement of neurotransmitters in other parts of the body. So, impulse transmission involves direct traverse of electrical signal through the synapses in the brain. So at the end of the axon, the impulse is being received from the dendrites, allowing calcium ions to open. So diri na gyud nato ma-apply ang ato ang mga natun-an sa anafi, di ba? Oh, so if wa gyud ta niagi anafi na wa gyud ta nakabalo gyud ani, di ba? Remember the axon and dendrites nga naa sa inyong discussion sa nervous system, di ba? Oh, so the calcium rush signals the release of neurotransmitters into the synapse. So sa maning synapse, then the receiving neuron receives the neurotransmitter in its specific binding sites in the cell membrane. Okay. Remember, this is a nerve cell, and this is the dendrite, and this is the axon. Okay. So, ang direction sa nerve impulse, si dendrite yun una mag-receive ay si axon. Kay si axon mauning length sa body sa nerve cell. Okay? And kaning blue, guys, kaning covering sa blue, mauning ginatawag na nga myelin sheath. And again, very important si B12, no? Kay para maka-form tag myelin sheath, kinahanglan ang participation ni B12. Or else, kung kulang ang myelin sheath due to cobalamin deficiency, then dili ni ma-produce, and possible nga mag-abnormal ang impulse transmission, because this is supposed to protect the nerve cell from electricity, because the nerve cells constantly generate electricity because it's in the electrical form that impulse is transported. Okay? So, kinahanglan nga na ay mechanism ang nerve cell para protect iyang self from damage. So, mao na nga very important si myelin sheath. Okay? Yeah, so this is the end of the mounting na adiri sa end plate. So kani nga portion, for example, mao nang end sa nerve cell, then another nerve na sad na siya. So ang endpoint ana is if ang nerve mag-send na siya og impulse sa, for example, a muscle tissue. Okay? So impulse is transported from one nerve cell to another. Okay? And in between the nerve cells, or in between the nerve and then the effector organ, which is usually a muscle, na ay synapse. So synapse is a gap where electrical signal is turned into chemical signal. Okay? So not all in the electrical form. Okay? Ang pag-send og impulse. Pag-abot sa synapse, ma-convert na into chemical form. in the form of neurotransmitters, mainly acetylcholine. And acetylcholine, ang production of acetylcholine is needed or needs choline and vitamin B5. Diba? O so, kanin naana tay mga interactions nga nahisgutan. Okay, so unsa tong steps dito? So, the moment nga ma-receive ni sa luyo no sa nerve ang impulse, ang electricity, then that would stimulate the calcium ions to open. Okay? Mm. Allowing calcium gates to open. Tapos, mo-open man si calcium, so mo-open man ang channel for calcium. So, of course, si calcium musulod. Musulod siya sa cell. And the rushing of calcium to the inside would then stimulate the release of neurotransmitters. And usually, ang neurotransmitter na gina-release is acetylcholine. And dili man gud makatraverse ang electricity sa synapse, it can only traverse in the form of neurotransmitter, in the form of a chemical signal. So, neurotransmitter is released, and in the receiving neuron na ay mga receptors for neurotransmitter nga mo receive sa signal, and magpadayon na sad ang nerve transmission here, o padayon ang nerve impulse. Okay? So, diri nga point, ma-convert na sad siya into electricity. Okay? Para ang nerve impulse ma-transmit from one neuron to another. So, as you can see here, need si calcium para ma-convert ang nerve impulse in the electrical form into chemical form para ma-stimulate ang release ni acetylcholine. Para ang nerve impulse, mudiritso gyapon siya transport even though naatay synapse or naatay synaptic cleft or naatay space between the neurons because they are not physically touching. Naagid na space between them, and that is your synaptic cleft or simply synapse. So pag abot sa synapse, dili man makatraverse ang electrical form. So therefore, there has to be another way, and that is in the chemical form through the release of acetylcholine. And acetylcholine is only released when calcium is allowed, when calcium entry is allowed. Okay, so very important ang calcium sa nerve transmission. So if deficient ka sa calcium, then this operation would go berserk, no? Would be disrupted. Okay. What about the role of sodium and potassium in impulse transmission? Diba? So aside from them being electrolytes, they are also very important in impulse transmission. So, kani. Okay. Step 1, okay, mauning mahitabo as the electricity or as the nerve impulse in the electrical form is received by the axon. Okay. Di ba normal man nga ang potassium na sa sulod, then ang sodium na sa gawas. So normal ni siya kung wala pa'y nerve impulse. Pero even though mas daghan ang potassium sa sulod, mas daghan ang anions. Ma-overwhelm gyapon ang potassium. So therefore the general form or the general charge of the ICF in the axon is negative, while the outside is positive, that is established by sodium ions. So it's because of this nga naay resting potential ang axon. So therefore, mauning form nga ready siya mo accept og electrical signal from the nerve impulse that is incoming. Okay? Once nga naanay nerve signal, naanay electrical signal, then mulahi guys ang charges. So ang inside, ang ICF mahimong positive, and then ang sa gawas mahimong negative kay ang sodium musulod man sa cell, musulod man ang sodium sa cell. Then Kung musulod si sodium, mugawas pud si potassium. So therefore, mubali ang concentration. Okay? And mabalisad unsa ni? Ang mga charges. So, pag abot sa electrical signal, ang sa sulod na imong positive and sa gawas na imong negative, which is bali from the resting stage. So, this is how electrical signal is transmitted due to the differences in the electrolyte composition. Kay for example, if puros ni sila negative or if puros ni sila positive, then electrical signal would not be transmitted. So, yeah. So, that's why very important ang sodium and potassium in this, okay? Para may tabo ni siya. Okay? So, as the nerve impulse travels along the axon, so mao ni ang mga changes. Okay? So, as it grows, as it um, traverses down the length of the axon, so mao pod ni ang mahitabo. Okay. It's only when this portion of the axon is ready to accept another round of nerve impulse if ma-reestablish ang homeostasis, which is dapat negative ang sa sulod and positive sa gawas. Okay? Mahibaw-an nimo nga na ang electricity ang point if bali, if ang kani nga portion na ay positive and ang naa sa gawas negative. Okay? So that's how nerve impulse is transmitted. Okay? So if naay something wrong sa imong mga electrolytes, then it would mess up with this function, and yeah. Okay, maunang naay confusion nga mahitabo if hyponatremic ang patient or hypokalemic ang patient. Okay? So that's it. So let's proceed to the role of electrolytes in muscle contraction. So another function of electrolytes is they function in muscle contraction, no? So this is a muscle fiber in contracted state. So this is when mag-move ta. So kung i-move na tong muscles, generally mag-contract atong muscles para maka-generate tag movement. So mauning roles ni electrolytes nato. So during contraction, sodium is absorbed and potassium is released out of the muscle cells. Okay? And during contraction, calcium is also released from the sarcoplasmic reticulum to the sarcoplasm. Okay, sarcoplasm is the cytoplasm of the muscle cell or of the myocyte, and sarcoplasmic reticulum is the endoplasmic reticulum specifically found in myocytes or in muscle cells. So during contraction, guys, si calcium ma-release, mo accumulate siya sa cytoplasm gikan sa sarcoplasmic reticulum. And si magnesium, guys, ma-displace because in the relaxed state, kanang wala taga-move, si magnesium naka-bind siya with the muscle proteins like actin, myosin. So diri na sad nato ma-recall ang sliding filament theory, no, na for movement of muscles. So in the relaxed state, si magnesium ang naka-bind sa mga muscle proteins. But during movement, during contraction, si calcium ang nakabind with muscle proteins. Okay? Then, ma-display si magnesium. Then, aya na dayon mo balik si magnesium nga nakabind sa proteins if mag-relax na sad ang muscles. So, therefore, muscle contraction needs si calcium and muscle relaxation needs si magnesium. That's why, kung permita magka-cramps, possible nga deficient ka sa magnesium. Because remember, kung nag-cramps ta, ang muscles na to constantly nasa contracted state. Wala siya na relax. And remember, needs si magnesium for muscle relaxation. So kung kulang kag magnesium, then maunang mag-contract ra imong muscles, then maunang possible cause sa cramps. Okay? Oh, inana siya. And calcium is needed in muscle movement. Okay? Si chloride is also important because it's either released or absorbed during muscle contraction and relaxation. So, the major minerals are involved in muscle contraction. Okay? So, naatay naatay mga inani nga functions nga na-studyhan nato in the molecular level. Okay, let's proceed to iron metabolism. In here, guys, this is absorption of iron. Again, I'm going to make another summary, no, na parehas sa to sa vitamins. Okay? So, kani example ra ni siya sa akong discussion para masabtan na dayon ninyo tong akong himuon nga summary. So, i-take na ko nga example ang iron. So, this is how iron is absorbed. Okay? First, iron is released from bound food sa intestines niya, lumen, and then the enterocytes. So, iron is released from bound food components. So, some hydrochloric acid in the stomach may reduce ferric to ferrous form. So, usually ang iron nakabound no with kung dili man galing sa kuan. Okay, usually ang iron nakabound with protein. So, thanks to the proteases like pepsin and thanks to the acidity of the stomach, ang iron ma-release from their bound forms in the diet. Okay? Remember that in order for the iron to be absorbed, especially kaning elemental iron, kinahanglan siya ma-transform to ferrous. Okay? So that's why guys, kinahanglan nga acidic enough ang imuhang stomach or else dili ka maka-absorb og iron. Since kung kulang og acidity, then dili ma-transform ang ferric to ferrous. So therefore, dili ma-absorb ang iron. Because again, ma-absorb lang ang iron, ang elemental iron, if naka-ferrous form. Okay? Maunang mga supplement, ferrous sulfate na, dili ferric sulfate. Eh kung ferric sulfate, dili na ma-absorb. Okay? Free heme is absorbed intact by heme carrier protein 1 or HCP1 located primarily in the proximal small intestine. Within the enterocyte, heme is catabolized by heme oxygenase to protoporphyrin and ferrous. Non-heme iron in the small intestine may react with one or more inhibitors which promote the fecal excretion of iron. So, when you say heme iron, inani iyang porma, naa siya sa sulod sa heme. Okay, sa porphyrin ring ang tawag ani. And gikan ni siya sa meats usually. Okay, mao maning form sa iron nga naa sa meat. Kung naka-heme form siya, don't worry na atay carrier, dili ni siya kinahanglan og digestion. Okay? Because it's directly absorbed by this transporter. Mao nang ingon nato nga mas bioavailable ang heme kay dili na need og digestion kay diretso na siya ma-absorb sa enterocyte through the HCP1. Pero what about those iron nga non-heme? Usually naka-ferric form. Okay? And then mauning makita nato sa plants. Okay? Remember that myoglobin is a component of the muscles, no, and kaning karne muscles raman na sa animals. So naa diha ang iron. So that's why mas bioavailable siya. Aside nga kinahanglan pa yun i-convert ang non-heme iron nga ferric into ferrous para ma-absorb, very prone pud siya sa interaction with inhibitors like for example alkaline ang pH, kani nga mga compounds nga usually na sa plants like oxalic acid and phytic acid, they would bind with non-heme iron and just be excreted out of the body through feces. So mao nang gamay gud ang bioavailability ni iron and ni non-heme iron. Okay? So, um, step 3, ahang step 3 diri. Kani, step 3. Within the enterocyte, heme is catabolized by heme oxygenase to protoporphyrin and ferrous. So, once nga ma-absorb na to ang heme, then ay enzyme nga mag-breakdown ana. Okay? Para ma-release si ferrous. But what about kaning mga non-heme iron? So again, pwede siya mo react aning mga inhibitors. Reductases, mainly duodenal cytochrome B, catalyze the reduction of ferric to ferrous. So, naapod enzyme para ma-convert ang ferric to ferrous para ma-absorb siya. And that is this enzyme. There is a transporter in the apical membrane that specifically absorbs ferrous iron, and that is DMT1 or divalent metal transporter 1. And this also absorbs other divalent metals like zinc, copper. So maupod na nga pwede pud siya makig-compete ani. Okay? Makig-compete sa other minerals for absorption. Okay? Ferrous, kaning 7, then binds to this protein for transport in the cytosol. Iron may also be used within the cell or stored as part of ferritin. Kung mag-produce ta og kung i-store na to ang iron, guys, kinahanglan nga i-transform siya into ferric form. Kinahanglan siya i-oxidize. Okay? Ferroportin is the transporter in the basolateral membrane that involves in exit of iron from the enterocyte to the blood. Okay? And this is very important to remember, kay sa next nga slides mo ni atong hisgutan. Okay. Iron transport is coupled with oxidation to ferric by hephaestin. And para ma-transport ang ferrous, guys, dapat i-oxidize siya balik to ferric. And it is done by a protein called hephaestin, which is rich in copper. So this is how copper plays a role in iron transport, because without copper, then therefore walay hephaestin, so therefore dili ma-convert ang ferrous to ferritin, so therefore dili possible ang transport of iron in the blood, because again ferrous can only be carried by transferrin if naka-ferric form siya. So need si copper para ani. Okay, so mo nang kung kulang kag copper, pwede pud na mag-lead to iron deficiency anemia. Okay? So, ferric attaches to transferrin for transport in the blood. Okay. So remember that. Remember this. Okay. Okay. So, mao ni ang storage sa iron. As you can see here, the part of the body that stores the most iron is the red blood cells. 2-5 milligrams of iron is stored in the red blood cells. Bone marrow, 300 lang. Sa spleen, 600 lang. Okay? Sa liver, 1,000 lang. So, mas taas yapon ang storage sa red blood cells. Okay? Okay. So, dili na sad ta maghisgot aning hepcidin, which is another protein that influences iron homeostasis. So hepcidin is responsible for the expression or production of ferroportin, which is, makita na-encounter nato ng ferroportin diri sa basolateral membrane sa enterocyte. Okay? It is said that if na ay inflammation marked by interleukin 6, this is a cytokine that would increase inflammation, then hepcidin production or hepcidin expression will be increased. Okay? And if there is and if si hepcidin mo increase siya, so mo increase sab ang um, ferroportin production. Okay? And hmm, okay. Wait lang ha. Ako na i-confirm. So during conditions in which the hepcidin level is abnormally high, such as inflammation, serum iron falls due to iron trapping within macrophages and liver cells and decreased gut iron absorption. This typically leads to anemia due to an inadequate amount of serum iron being available for developing red blood cells. When the hepcidin level is abnormally low, such as in hemochromatosis, iron overload occurs due to increased ferroportin-mediated iron efflux from storage and increased gut iron absorption. Hmm, wait lang. So, kung mo-increase sa ferroportin, ah serum iron falls due to iron trapping within macrophages and liver cells and decreased gut iron absorption. When the hepcidin level is abnormally low, such as in hemochromatosis, iron overload occurs due to increased ferroportin-mediated iron influx from storage and increased gut iron absorption. So kung mo-increase si hepcidin, mo-increase dapat ang FPN. Okay? Okay, wait lang. Okay. So, si hepcidin mismo mag-bind sa ferroportin. So, therefore, matrap ang iron. Okay. So, remember, si ferroportin, naa siya diri sa basolateral. So, imagine, if na-inflammation, guys, such as cancer, kidney failure, heart failure, liver cirrhosis, HIV AIDS, basically mga catabolic diseases. Um, si hepcidin mo taas. Plus. Okay? Mutaas si hepcidin. So, therefore, kung mutaas si hepcidin, daghan ang hepcidin nga mo-block sa ferroportin. So, si hepcidin mo-bind sa ferroportin. So, kung mo-bind si hepcidin kay ferroportin, dili na makagawas ang iron kay na physically block man siya ni hepcidin. And aside from that, the binding of ferroportin with hepcidin would lead to ferroportin degradation. So therefore, matrap ang iron sa sulod sa enterocyte and mugamay ang iron nga naa sa plasma. Okay? Kaya natrap man sa sulod ang iron. Okay. So inana. Aside from that, matrap po ang iron sa sulod sa macrophage. So therefore, mugamay sad ang iron nga available sa dugo. And matrap sad ang iron sa sulod sa liver. So dili pud maka-donate ang liver ug iron sa blood. So therefore, mugamay ang available nga iron for red blood cell production and mag-lead siya to anemia. Okay. So this would explain, guys, why these inflammatory diseases would lead to anemia of chronic disease. So anemia of chronic disease, mao ning mahitabo. So kung naay chronic disease ang patient such as katong akong gipang-ingon nga mga diseases, mao ning mahitabo. Mutaas ang hepcidin, matrap ang iron sa sulod sa kaning mga tissues and mugamay ang available nga iron for red blood cell production. Okay. What about kung bali, kung mugamay ang hepcidin? So mugamay ang hepcidin kung naay iron overload such as hemochromatosis. Hemochromatosis is a genetic disorder that would lead to iron overload. So therefore mugamay ang mag-trap sa iron, so mao na magsige na lang gyud og pagawas ang intestines og iron ang liver since wala na hepcidin nga mo trap, magsige na lang gyud pud siya pagawas. So therefore pwede nga mutaas ang iron levels into toxic levels sa blood, and that would lead to iron toxicity. Okay. So inana siya. So FPN means ferroportin. Okay. So di lang si transferrin, hemosiderin, ferritin ang involved ni iron, but naa sad ferroportin, hepcidin, and katong mga transporters nga naa sa enterocytes. Okay. I would also like to point this out, application sa community, no, na ay mga normal value sa hemoglobin nga kung mubabaan na, so that would indicate anemia. Okay? So mao ni ang prevalence of anemia nga mao ning mga cut-off values, no, to indicate whether the prevalence of anemia in that community is of severe public health significance, moderate, mild, or low. Okay? So, you don't need to memorize this. Okay? Ako lang iyang application sa community. So, for example, if 41% of that community has iron deficiency anemia, then that's severe nga public health problem. Pero kung maingon nato nga low lang ang public health problem sa anemia, if less than 4.9 ang sa kana nga population kay naay anemia. Okay? So this is usually used in the interpretation of NNS results. Okay, let's proceed to zinc. So zinc is probably your most favorite nutrient, okay? Because of its many diverse functions. So let's discuss first the role of zinc in the immune system. So naay tulo ka post mechanisms. So zinc is an essential factor for the activity of many enzymes. So it is known to form part of more than 300 metalloenzymes which cannot function in its absence. So 300 nga enzymes ang mag-need og zinc as its cofactor. Thus, zinc is essential to the function of DNA polymerase, thymidine kinase, and DNA-dependent RNA polymerase, whose involvement in nucleic acid synthesis could explain the effects of zinc on lymphoid cell proliferation. So zinc is needed by these enzymes, and these enzymes are needed in DNA synthesis. So kung kulang ang zinc, maapektuhan ni nga mga enzymes, and that would also decrease the production of these cells which are needed by the immune system. Okay? Another mechanism is that zinc is necessary for the activity of some immunity mediators. So this has been clearly shown for thymolene, in a peptidic hormone secreted by thymic epithelial cells, and requiring the presence of zinc for its biological activity. This peptide promotes T lymphocyte maturation, cytotoxicity, and interleukin 2 production. So, thymidine needs zinc, no, in order to function for the immune system. Zinc is also a major intracellular regulator of lymphocyte apoptosis in vitro and in vivo. Thus, it is becoming evident that the thymic atrophy and lymphopenia, which accompany zinc deficiency, are mainly due to an alteration in the production of lymphocytes and the loss of precursor cells via an apoptotic mechanism. Okay? So, need po siya para normal ang cell growth and development of the cells found in the thymus, and you know that thymus is the house, no, of these T cells and B cells that are needed in the adaptive immune system. Okay, so morning exact role ni zinc sa male reproductive health. Zinc promotes the formation of sperm cells or spermatogenesis. So uh, zinc is needed as a cofactor in ribonuclease, which is an important enzyme in RNA synthesis. Okay. During spermatogenesis, zinc participates in spermatozoa maturation, preserves germinative epithelium and seminiferous tubules. And at the end of spermatogenesis, zinc enhances sperm motility para successful siya, no, sa pag-engage with egg cell. Yeah, so these are the specific roles of zinc in spermatogenesis. No wonder zinc is highly concentrated in the semen because it's needed, especially in this part, no, sperm motility. Okay? So need si zinc para ma-reach niya ang egg cell. So, zinc is also needed in normal prostate gland function and normal testosterone production. Okay? So that's why ang iron is the female mineral and zinc is the male mineral, no? Okay. What about this protein called metallothionein? Metallothionein is very rich in cysteine. That's why dagan kay sulfur diri, no? Remember that cysteine is an amino acid composed of sulfur. Okay? And it is in this sulfur linkages that zinc can be associated with. Metallothionein is the main storage protein form of zinc. So, para ma-store si zinc sa sulod sa cell, si thionein, which is an protein, associates with zinc. Okay? If daghan nga zinc ang if daghan ang zinc nga mosulod sa cell, such as in the small intestine, so kung daghan ang naabsorb nga zinc, that would then promote the production of thionein protein para mo daghan ang metallothionein. Okay? So aside from zinc, it can also bind with copper. So actually mas taas ang iyang affinity to copper. Okay? Mas ma-attract ang thionein sa copper kaysa sa zinc. Okay? And thionein can also combine with heavy metals like cadmium, lead, and other heavy metals. So that's why kung naay heavy metal poisoning, zinc supplementation is recommended. Kay again, the more the zinc, mas taas ang production sa thionein protein. So therefore, mas daghan ang pwede nga mag-bind sa mga heavy metals. So therefore, dili ra kaayo mahimong toxic ang heavy metal sa sulod sa cell kay naa may thionein to salvage and to bind with these heavy metals thanks to zinc supplementation, because thionein production can only be increased when there is high zinc. Okay? Zinc again is a very important cofactor in more than 300 enzymes, including carboxypeptidase. Remember, carboxypeptidase is a peptidase. It's it's a digestive enzyme, okay, that cleaves C-terminus ends of peptides. Okay, so zinc is needed as a cofactor of um, this protein digesting enzyme. Zinc is also needed by alcohol dehydrogenase para ma-detoxify ang alcohol. Diba? As what I've explained. So, maunang very important si zinc no in alcoholics, okay? Kay para ma-detoxify si alcohol. Zinc is also needed by carbonic anhydrase, which is responsible in converting carbonic uh, in converting carbonic acid to bicarbonates. So therefore, important po si zinc sa acid-base balance because remember, carbonic acid is an important part of the buffer system. Okay? So, yeah. Examples lang ni siya sa mga enzymes that need zinc. No? Daghan pag yun kaayo. Okay. What about copper? So, I told you ganina nga ang copper mas taas iyang affinity to metallothionein, no? So, therefore, if mas daghan ang copper, then ma-displace si zinc. Because mas ma-attract man si metallothionein kay copper. So, imagine if taas imuhang copper intake, so wala nay mo bind, wala nay ika-bind si zinc. So, therefore, dili ma-transport ang zinc across the enterocyte kay excessive imong copper intake. So, it is in this premise that high copper intake can lead to zinc deficiency. Because copper, since daghan man siya, siya na lang ang mag-bind kay metallothionein, leaving zinc unbound. And how can we transport zinc across the enterocyte kung wala yung metallothionein? Okay? So, that's why here, metallothionein is a transport protein that facilitates copper absorption in the enterocyte. Okay? What about ceruloplasmin? Ceruloplasmin is the transport form of copper in the blood. Kung sa sulod sa cell, si metallothionein. Pero kung sa gawas sa cell, kung sa blood na, copper must be transferred to ceruloplasmin. So, almost all of the copper that is floating around the bloodstream is in the form of ceruloplasmin. Okay. So, diri na nato hisgutan pod ang Menkes disease, Menkes disease and Menkes disease and Wilson's disease. So, si Menkes disease, genetic disorder ni siya, no, that would lead to low copper levels or copper deficiency. And si Wilson's disease, genetic disease ni that would lead to copper overload or copper toxicity. So, say causes ani, this is caused by an abnormal genetic expression that would lead to defect in the transport of copper from intestinal mucosal cell to the blood. So this leads to decreased intestinal absorption of copper. So kani nga protein no makit ani yun ni sa summary nga kung ihatag. While Wilson's disease defect in ATP7B, which is transporter on the Golgi of hepatocytes. So, if dili ni siya maayo nga protein such as in the Wilson's disease, then dili na to ma-excrete ang copper into the bile and that would destroy, or that would damage the liver. Kay dili naman ta maka-excrete og copper, kay dili na makaagi ang copper sa kani nga protein, since daot ni siya, since due to the genes. Okay, so aside from liver injury, ang copper sad sa gikan sa brain, cornea, kidneys, dili sad makagawas. So mag-lead siya to copper overload and copper toxicity. Okay? So, comparison of Wilson's disease and Menkes disease. So, Menkes disease kay kaning green, and red kaning Wilson's disease. So, ang defect sa Menkes disease is dili maka-absorb ang body sa copper from the enterocyte to the portal circulation. So, na-block ang copper. So, naara siya sa sulod sa intestines. So, therefore, mugamay ang copper levels, mugamay ang ceruloplasmin sa blood, and that would lead to hypocoprenemia or copper deficiency. Okay? So, dili sad makasulod ang copper from the blood to the brain. So, magkulang sad ang copper sa brain, and that is very dangerous. Okay? Mao nang defect sa Menkes disease. But ang defect sa Wilson's disease is dili makagawas ang copper from the liver to the bile. So, dili na to ma-excrete ang copper through the bile. So, therefore, copper would just accumulate in the liver, and that would cause liver injury. Okay? Dili pud ta maka-release og copper from the liver to the blood plasma. So, therefore, that would lead to copper toxicity in the liver, and that is the characteristic of Wilson's disease. So mauna nga kung naay Wilson's disease ang patient, then mag low copper diet, and if naay Menkes disease ang patient, then mag high copper diet. But kani usually administered na siya intravenously, kay since dili naman kayo ma-absorb ang copper sa intestine, so walay value no kung supplements nga taken orally. So usually intravenous na ang administration, diretso na sa veins, diretso na sa ugat ang administration sa copper sa Menkes disease. Tapos sa Wilson's disease, mag low copper diet yun. So bawasan ang mga foods that are high in copper, such as chocolates, and dili magamit og mga cooking vessels that are rich in copper. Okay? What about zinc-copper interaction? So, morning itong akong ingon. Pero kani bali, kung daghan sad ang zinc kaayo, dili sad makakross ang copper, kay unsa man ni, copper ang green, zinc ang yellow. So kung normal lang ang level sa dietary intake nimo sa copper and zinc, then okay, ma-absorb ang duha. Pero for example, if mas daghan ang zinc, gamay ang copper, then remember that copper has more affinity to metallothionein. So mo-bind ra si copper sa metallothionein, pero dili siya ma-absorb pagawas sa cell, padulong sa bloodstream. So therefore, copper would just accumulate here, mukulang ang copper sa blood, and that would lead to copper deficiency due to excess zinc intake. Okay, so kung taas ang zinc, mag-lead to copper deficiency. Kung taas ang copper, mag-lead to zinc deficiency. Okay. Next is iodine. The one organ that needs a lot of iodine is the thyroid gland, because the major purpose of the thyroid gland is to produce thyroxine. And in order to produce thyroxine, need niya og iodine. Okay? And aside sa iodine, need niya og tyrosine. Okay? So, si tyrosine, convert niya into T4 and T3. T4 kung naiupat nga iodine molecule, T3 kung naitulong nga iodine molecule. So, T4 and T3 are the major thyroid hormones. Okay? Out of tyrosine and iodine. So, this is the thyroid cell and this is the blood plasma. So of course, ang iodine nga gikan sa pagkaon, gikan sa intestines, mo travel sa thyroid gland and pag abot niya sa thyroid gland, i-absorb din siya sa thyroid gland. Okay? So, mauning mahitabo. Okay? Si thyroid gland, guys, grabe yun na siya makapangita og iodine. As soon as naa siya ma-detect nga iodine sa blood, iyaha yun na i-absorb dayon. That is how hungry the thyroid gland is when it comes to sequestering or absorbing iodine from the blood. Okay? Kay need niya para makaproduce siya T3 and T4. This is also how iodine is internalized by a thyroid cell. So, since taas ang iodine sa sulod, which is expected, then gamay ang iodine sa blood, then ang movement kung magpasulod tag iodine from the blood to the inside of the thyroid cell is low to high. So that is uphill. So that's active transport. So the energy that is needed to transport iodine via uphill movement is derived from the sodium-potassium pump na naa sa basolateral side of the thyroid cell. Okay? So, this transporter in the thyroid cell is called sodium iodine co-transporter because need nga matransport sad si sodium aside sa iodine. Okay? So, inana siya. You know nga cretinism results from maternal iodine deficiency. So, kulang ang intake ni mother sa iodine during pregnancy. So, morning mahitabo sa bata. And this is just one of the manifestations of congenital hypothyroidism. That means at birth pa lang, na-establish at birth, kulang na ang iodine. Kulang na ang iodine sa bata, which would lead to dwarfism or cretinism. Kani. Although not all dwarfism is caused by iodine deficiency, but sa mga areas nga kulang og iodine, usually ang dwarfism is caused by maternal iodine deficiency. What about goiter? Kanang goiter, dili na siya congenital. When you say congenital, inborn established at birth. Maka kuan ta og goiter no kung kulang tag iodine. Because again, ingon ako ganina si thyroid gland constantly ga-search og iodine sa blood. So imagine if kulang yun ang iodine sa blood, then mag-compensate ang gland no in an effort to search iodine nga gamay ra gyud siya sa blood because kulang ang iodine intake, then mudako siya. So mao nang mudako si thyroid gland, mao nang magka-goiter because si thyroid gland nangita in tawon og iodine nga wala sa blood kay tungod lagi kay deficient sa iodine. So, manang mudako siya. Okay? And we can also suffer from hypothyroidism kung kulang ta og iodine intake. Okay? So kung kulang tag iodine intake, um, mag-lead either hypo or hyperthyroidism. By the way, dili lang iron deficiency ang mag-lead to cretinism but also toxicity. Okay? So kung toxic sa dang iodine then mag-lead po siya to cretinism. Okay? Same as this. Kung kulang ta og iodine or sobra tag iodine, then kung sobra og iodine usually mag-lead to hyperthyroidism, which is hypersecretion or too much production of thyroid hormones. And iodine deficiency would usually result to hypothyroidism. So, Graves' disease is a common cause of hyperthyroidism, an overproduction of thyroid hormone, which causes enlargement of the thyroid and other symptoms such as exophthalmos. So, if magbulge ang eyes, usually it's hyper. Okay. So, ang difference po guys sa hyper and hypothyroidism is that kung hypothyroidism, usually tambok, no? Because, nganong tambok man ang mga, or, ano ni, excessive ang fat accumulation sa na hypothyroidism because kulang ang thyroxine. And remember, thyroxine is a hormone that stimulates energy metabolism. So, dili ma-breakdown ang fats kung walay thyroxine. So, mo nang usually ang naay hypothyroidism, excess yun ang BMI. Whereas, kung grabe sad ang production sa thyroxine, so payat, thin ang patient. Tungod kay excess ang thyroxine, so excess ang breakdown sa fats. Okay? What about the role of selenium in iodine metabolism? Selenium is used, guys, by the enzyme called 5-iodothyronine deiodinase, which is an enzyme that would convert T4 to T3. Okay? So, maupod na guys nga if kulang tag selenium, then it would also negatively impact the production of T3, which is also another important thyroid hormone. Okay? So, this enzyme needs selenium as its cofactor. Na show na nako ganina no ang participation in ni selenium as a cofactor of glutathione peroxidase, which would neutralize dehydroascorbate and convert it back to the reduced vitamin C form. Chromium is considered a part of the glucose tolerance factor. So, mao ni ang dagway ni glucose tolerance factor, which improves insulin sensitivity and is thought to have anti-diabetic properties because it improves the insulin response of cells. Okay? So this is the proposed mechanism as to where chromium participates as a part of the glucose tolerance factor. So the glucose tolerance factor nga naadri ang chromium somehow has an effect in the insulin receptor, which would then lead to improve insulin sensitivity, and therefore it can help decrease the risk of diabetes. Okay. So, maunang chromium is also considered an essential mineral because of this function. Okay, so that's the end of our midterm. Okay. So, yeah, I hope at this point ready na mo for the midterm exam because that means if nahumanan ninyo ni then na sabtanan ninyo to. So, my piece of advice is you just have to understand. Okay? you don't have to really memorize all of those transporters, all of those, although makatabang siya no nga i-memorize nimo, but I think um kung unsa nga time ang akong na-spend for that discussion, then that would also mean nga diha ko magkuha og mga questions during the midterm. Okay? So, and may bawaan man ninyo during sa akong discussion kung aha ko nagputog emphasis. So, dito mo mag-study. Okay? And very important nga masabtan ninyo. Okay. So, I hope nga, nindot yung score sa midterm. And I hope you learned a lot no from our lessons so far sa midterm sa kanika subject. So that's all guys, and again, God bless.